Good evening. Thank you everyone for joining us today as we celebrate October 2020's final projects. I'm Tatiana and I'm a software engineering coach here at Makers. And tonight, the October cohort has 5 amazing projects to demo. As you may or may not know, Makers is a 16-week coding bootcamp. And over the course of the bootcamp, developers go from consolidating some coding basics to being able to build entire applications from scratch. Just a few months ago, the devs in the October cohort were in their first week here when they were getting to grips with classes in Ruby. And now they can design, build, and deploy entire applications in a tech stack of their choice. If you have any questions about the course, then tonight is a great night to be joining us, as you can use the webinar Q&A feature to submit questions to the Makers team. We'll be answering those questions in a 30-minute Q&A session after the student presentations. I'm really proud of the October cohort. In the past 2 weeks, they've all stretched themselves to learn something new, overcome various challenges, and deliver original products, which I'm so excited that they're sharing with you tonight. And now, without further ado, on to the presentations. A warm welcome to our first team of the night, SOS App. Please take it away when you are ready.
So the app that we've built is called the SOS app, and it's a travel companion. The idea for the app is that it recognizes the user's location worldwide. And by recognizing their location, it can tell them the local emergency services numbers in the country they're in. We think this is a potentially useful if you're in a country where you don't speak the language. And we also have a map that's attached to it, which will show local services like pharmacies and medical nearby. So we'll give you a demo of the app now. Francesco could start that for me, please. So here you can see we're running it in iOS. And we're just going to run up a quick simulation just while it's loading up. So when the app opens up, it asks us for our location. So we grant it permission, and it's currently defaulting to Japan as our current location. And you can see that it's given the emergency services numbers for that location. We also have a map on the app. So once again, recognizing the user's location, and it's showing with the badges some medical services nearby. You can click on these individual badges and it'll give you more information about the addresses. And in our drop down, we can select other options like local pharmacies. And again, getting some more address information, and also local police stations. The user can move themselves around on the map as well. And then by hitting refresh, it will continue to update the information about local stuff in their area. Now, if we go back to the map, we can also simulate other locations to show you how the app works. So now we're going to simulate that the user is in New York. You can see now we're on 47th Street and it's updated to the 911 numbers that we're all familiar with. Now, if we go back to the map and we refresh the user's location, now we're just south of Central Park. And if we hit hospital, we can see local clinics nearby to our location and also pharmacies. And that's pretty much how our app works. So I'm now going to pass on to Michael, and he's going to tell you a bit more information about our project.
Yeah, so one of our main challenges to overcome was the fact that I was actually working in Hong Kong. So we had about an 8-hour time difference, which basically just meant I'd duck out at around midnight this time, and then which would be 4 p.m. UK time, which meant that the other teammates would have a lot of time to still just work on the app and like develop it further. And then I would kind of be out of the loop, or possibly some others had to duck out a bit early as well. So the way we kind of overcame this was whatever work was done, they'd put resources, tutorials that they use that evening into the Slack channel, and any other resources that would be helpful to basically try and help catch up. And then every morning at 10 a.m. we'd start the day with a catch up, a quick retro. Everyone would bring each other up to speed on the specific code/tasks they were working on. Once we were all caught up and felt confident in all aspects of the project, we'd make a plan for the rest of the day and then break off into pairs and sometimes even individuals to accomplish these tasks. Then at around 12:30, just before lunchtime, we'd all meet again together debrief, make sure everyone knew what was going on, exactly where we were with the app, and then make a plan for the afternoon and kind of just attack it like that. And it just worked like clockwork after a while. I'd say this was extremely important, trying to stay disciplined to this daily routine, because we actually changed ideas Tuesday afternoon to this emergency app. And none of us had ever worked with Xcode or Swift before. So we literally had about a week, if not less than that, to try and come up with an app with a framework we've never used, a language we've never used. So that took a lot of individual work and revision, which Adam will touch upon a bit more.
Hi, so yeah, I'm going to talk about Swift. We built our entire application in Swift, which is a multi-purpose programming language, and it's Apple's chosen successor to Objective-C, which since the 80s has been Apple's language of choice. It's designed to run on Apple devices. So the syntax, it sort of looks like JavaScript, has an equally low threshold for syntax flexibility. So if you basically you can't even put one comma in the wrong place or it won't work. It's also got its own lingo, being an Apple thing, and the error messages don't make a vast amount of sense unless you learn that lingo first. But unlike a lot of the other frameworks and the other languages we could have used, which are JavaScript based, Swift is a general purpose programming language. It's not it doesn't have its roots in web development. So from a learning perspective for us, it served as a gateway into other C-based languages, which we might want to learn in the future, like C++ and C#. The way our app works is by taking the core location data provided by Apple within an iPhone. So we get that data and then we make it speak directly to an external data source called an API. Now, we don't control the core location, obviously. We don't control the external API either. So we have to write code that's going to speak directly to that without any sort of user action required in between. And that was probably the biggest challenge, was kind of meeting that API where it was and then writing specific requests such that we would get back the information we wanted and the app would therefore work. I'll now pass on to Francesco, who will discuss the maps.
So the Google technology that we used to build our application was Maps SDK, software developer kit. That basically allowed us to add maps based on Google Maps data. These SDK technologies granted us to automatically have access to the Google Maps server, map display, response to user gesture like clicks and drags. And one of the most important features was to create markers on the map of the location searched by the users, as you can see from your screen, such as pharmacy. Also giving information of each places. We started to build our app from the map using the new SwiftUI language, as we wanted to learn a language that most probably will be used in the future, replacing the old one. Learning a new language such as Swift wasn't easy at all, especially if there is, let's say, a new version of it. We searched many tutorials and documentation on how to implement the map with SwiftUI in our app, and we couldn't find any good resources, exactly because it's new, and all the official Google Docs are written UI kit. Due to that, we then decided to switch to UI kit last week on Thursday for the map. Building the map was fine with the resources we found. However, during our project, we faced some difficulties on finding good materials also for UI kit, as many of them were already obsolete. So as Adam mentioned already, we ended up using both, where we also together storyboard of feature of SwiftUI. As you can see, like on the map, that one is we built the map with a old with a tool from SwiftUI, and the view where the phone numbers built with a SwiftUI new technology. And this one I just a screenshot of from my iPhone to just show you the app is perfectly working in a iOS device. Thank you.
Thank you, SOS App. I think it's really cool that you dove straight in and learned a whole new language while building this product in just 2 weeks. It's also a really, really useful idea that I would love to have while traveling, just make me feel safer. Not knowing a language in certain countries can be super difficult. And just knowing that you would have this on your phone, which you would have with you while traveling. It would make it feel a lot safer. It also has a super smooth user experience. So thanks for sharing it with us. Really great work.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome the second team of the night, Cyberdrag.
Hello. Hi there. Okay. Are we ready to go? Thank you so much, Tatiana, and thank you very much, Team SOS. So Cyberdrag, set in a dystopian cyberpunk future, Cyberdrag is a browser-based fantasy sports style web app where users like you and I can invest in the careers of drag performers who are forced to stream every hour by a tech megacorp. So I can understand that's a lot, and I'm sure in the next 7 minutes we're going to make it sound a lot more sense to you there. We wanted to make a game that incorporated multiple players with a shared narrative, with fun random elements to make things more interesting. Cyberdrag is an evolving world that evolves every hour. So we're going to talk about things like the technical aspect of it, and then we're going to show you how the web app works itself. So I'm going to pass you on to my colleague and friend Mike, who's going to talk you through about some of the more technical decisions we made earlier on in this project.
Hi, Mike here. Thanks, Rafa. We decided to go with a MERN stack for this project, which is a JavaScript software stack. So I'm going to avoid boring you with the details about that, but we definitely chose it because it was a challenge for us. We wanted to learn an entirely new technology, and I honestly thought it was a lot of fun. That's pretty much all I'm going to give you on this. If you're technically inclined, then the slides on the screen and you can enjoy the beautiful mernness. But otherwise, I'm going to pass you on to Alex, who's going to talk to you about the much more interesting features that we managed to build over the past 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, so the interesting thing I think about our web app is the amount of things that are going on in the background, which may not look all that much from the front end, but it's an interactive world, as Rafa said, where everything is evolving. All of the users have their own portfolio of shares, which are tied to the net worth of the individual randomly generated performers. You can buy and sell different shares, and the price that you buy and sell at are affected by that performer's net worth. Each performance that everyone performs in, there is a random chance that an event will occur where all the performers, and it'll affect them in different ways. Performers also have traits which will protect them from certain events. So we have things like food poisoning, and if you are a vegetarian or the performer has the vegetarian trait, then they won't be affected by that. Those that are affected during the performance are then stopped performing for the next X number of times that people have to perform. And they still have costs attached to that. So their values and your shares will go down as they are stopped from streaming. There are also positive effects where values are increased and your shares will go up as a result of that. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Alex, who will give you a demonstration of the website.
Thank you, Alex. I didn't get colleague and friend, and I'd like that to be on the record. Okay, so this is how the app looks to the user. So this is just a little landing page with some sort of Philip K. Dick inspired flavor text. Reasonably cryptic to kind of not give too much away about the platform, which we want to sort of evolve to the user over time. And as Rafa mentioned, be a collective experience where you have your own portfolio of shares, but actually everyone's playing the same game. So you can see the top 3 performers here. So our queens are randomly generated with a first name and a last name and an avatar. And as Alex alluded to, this is a list of the events that have happened to our queens during their performances. So that ranges currently from food poisoning to being rounded up by the cyberpunk thought police for streaming content that might not be regarded as appropriate. And you can see when the next performance is going to be. So that's set up on our server to run once an hour. Here you can see a list of all of the current queens. So there are always 20. and you can go onto their profile, and here's where you select to buy either one share, or you can select a number of shares to buy or sell. And it's correctly pluralized, which was, you know, obviously tremendously important. And then the server remembers how many shares that you own, and you can, you know, share X number of shares. You can hedge your investments. You can really do everything that you could on Robinhood, except it's much more niche in terms of what you can invest. You can't sell shares if you don't own them, for example. So you've got error checking throughout the app, and there's a lot of testing on the back end, which again is quite boring, but very, very important, as we've learned throughout our time at Makers to do. So here's the profile page where you can see your portfolio. So those are the shares that I own. That's my balance, and these are all of the transactions that I've made. So again, that's just rendering of the data that's on the server. I'm now going to pass you over to Rafa again to conclude our presentation. Thank you. And my friend and colleague, Rafa.
Thank you, Alex, my friend and colleague. So I guess there was some highs and lows, obviously. A big part of this project, although it's our final project, we're still at the boot camp. So we're very much in a process of learning. There's loads of learning to take away. Not to get too technical, but the style of the coding framework, should we say, the way we're working, was very kind of almost modular based, a bit like Lego blocks being assembled in different kind of ways. And we really kind of enjoyed that kind of working process. And it's very different to how we were working at the start of the course. So it was really nice to work in a very different way. It was a creative project, and that was also really nice. I think there's always a misconception that coding is very kind of, you know, ultra kind of rigid and mathematical and scientific, but it's also wonderfully creative as well. And I think we could lean into that at times when we were feeling a bit bogged down in trying to solve errors and things like that. So that was great. Some of the low points, some of the technical stuff that we were learning for the first time certainly was challenging, shall we say. Making the website do what I guess your average user like you and I would think is super simple is actually really, really difficult, and it gives you a tremendous amount of respect for professionals who do this. Hopefully we are going to become soon. And because it was such a huge project, and normally in these kind of teams, there'd be someone working on the way the website looks and someone who works on how it operates at the back, on kind of the back end, so to speak. You'd have two separate teams. We didn't want to work like that because we wanted to learn the whole process, and keeping on top of that can be very difficult. But overall, you know, it was a wonderful experience and great team.
Thank you so much, Cyberdrag, for helping us dive into this dystopian world. I love the idea of your app, and I love the look, and I'm super excited to try it out. Thanks also for taking us through the details of how the app works. I know you put a lot of thought into this, and it's really awesome that you shared that with the audience today. And as a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions about the course, you can submit these through the Q&A feature of the webinar, and the Makers staff will be answering them after the project presentations today. Now, a warm welcome to our third team, Potential.
Hi everyone, welcome to Team Potential. It's brought to you by Mel, Savannah, Lucy, and myself, Georgie. So Potential came about, first of all, when my partner and I started the process of getting my puppy, Baloo. We pick her up a week tomorrow, and my partner and I have very, very busy schedules. There's lots of things that kind of like get lost in translation normally in a household. So with a new pet coming in, we needed a one-stop shop where we could put all things puppy related, basically. Something to track when the dog had eaten, when the dog had walked, etc., etc. And so we created Potential. We decided to go with a web app, and we decided to use code-based authentication, which is like a 6-letter unique code for each pack, as it allows multiple people in a household to kind of join, and also those outside of the household to care and attract and communicate the needs of pet. As we started with dogs, we decided to label our groups as packs, and when you visit the homepage, you can either join an existing pack with this 6-letter unique code, or create a pack which will generate your own unique code for you. I'm going to create a pack for Baloo in preparation of her arrival. So that's what I'm doing now. All you do is type in the name, press create, and it takes you to this pack page. This has the 6-letter code here, so you can share it with your friends and family, and a list of options you can do. For those of you who are forgetful, like myself, if you accidentally close a page, lose it, forget the code, all you have to do is go back to the home page, press enter, and it takes you here automatically. The code is written in such a way it will remember you until you actively log out. So now we go to food. Normally, obviously, you would write this and enter this after you have fed your dog. I'm obviously having to do this in the future because I do not have Baloo. But let's say I feed her Sunday next week for lunch. And obviously at the moment I can't comment anything, but I can just say, leave her a little note to myself. And I'm going to give her 5 treats because she's cute. And here it instantaneously loads at the bottom. Next we press back to pack, it takes us back to this pack page. I could show you some more stuff, but because it's empty and not populated, I am going to let Mel do that next. So we're going to click leave pack, which is the only way to, remove the pack from your screen. So now over to Mel.
Thank you. So I'm going to demonstrate joining a pack. So my partner has already set up a pack for our pet Frodo. So I'm going to enter in the 6-letter code that he gave me, and I'm now in Frodo's pack page. So I'm going to have a look at the food log and see if Frodo has been fed today. And I can see from the log below that my partner did give Frodo breakfast, but Frodo did not eat all of it. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is take Frodo for a walk and then come back and feed her dinner. So I'm going to go into the walk section, and I can see that Frodo has not been walked today yet. I'm going to put in the city that I'm in just to see what the weather is doing, and that way I know if I need to get Frodo's rain jacket or not. And I don't, so that's great. Off I go on my walk. And I'm now back from my walk, and it was great. Frodo had a great time, lots of sniffing of everything around her. So I'm now going to log it here, and that way my partner can see that I did take Frodo for a walk. And even if Frodo begs to be taken for another walk, that way my partner knows that she was definitely walked today. So once I've put in the comments and the duration, I can then hit post, and it will add it to the log below. So I'll head back to the pack now. And as you can see, we have other features here like medical, toilet training, behavior training. We've designed our app in such a way that it is very scalable and we can add as many features as we like. But for now, these pages are under construction. So I'm going to now leave the pack and pass you over to Savannah, who will talk you through our project.
Thank you, Mel. Our team goals were ambitious as we really wanted to challenge ourselves. One of our goals was to learn a new programming language and new frameworks. We also wanted to use an external data source, such as the Weather API, and we wanted to utilize agile methodologies, as well as create a well-tested app. Our journey began with market research, so we carried out some online research to see if there are similar products in the market, see what features they have, how they look like, and that really helped us get an idea of how we wanted our final product to look like. So the next step for us was to decide whether we wanted to create a mobile-based app or a web-based app. And to reach that decision, we decided to split up and carry out some independent learning and learn about the different technologies that we would use for each option. We then came back together and shared our knowledge and learnings from our independent learning, and we decided as a team to proceed with a web-based app. For the rest of the project, we pair programmed to ensure knowledge sharing and learning, and we tried to build the product using Agile Scrum methodology, which involved stand-ups and retros to help ensure proper planning and development. I'll pass you to my colleague, Lucy.
Thanks, Savannah. Every project has its highs and lows. For us, we found that setting up the testing was more complex than we'd anticipated because we were using a new framework. The app currently isn't available as a published website as we'd intended. However, Georgie can still use it to track her pet's needs by running it locally on her computer, which is a relief. We had some differences of opinion in the first week around whether the tech stack that we'd chosen was the best fit for the project. This caused some tension within the group. However, we had an open and honest discussion about how we were feeling, and were able to work together to complete the project. We were fortunate to have a strong idea from the start about what we wanted the app to do, and were able to make decisions on which functionality to implement based on what would be most useful for potential users. So, what did we learn? Well, we've learned that we can use 2 new frameworks and a new language and put together a website in less than a fortnight. We've learned that we can work together in a team and deliver a project despite having differences, and that we can bring an idea to life from start to finish. And lastly, and most importantly, we've learned that there are infinite cute dog photos available on the internet for presentations. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Potential. It's really cool to see that you've built a product that's been inspired by your own experiences and that you're excited to use. I also have a dog, so super excited to use Potential to finally stop bugging my partner to see if he has fed Papaya or if I have to feed Papaya. It's been really awesome seeing your app go from idea to reality over the last 2 weeks. You've done an incredible job handling all of the challenges that came your way and persevering through them to deliver such a useful product. Thanks so much. Now, please welcome the 4th team of the night, Latus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome from Team Latus. Team Latus is made up of myself, Adam Grieve, Constantine Akratides, Chris Walsh, and Malachi Spencer, and the name means colourful in Latin. I'm going to take you through the demo of our app first, and then I'll hand over to Constantine. So this is what you're greeted with when you first open the app. And as you see, you press the button at the bottom and have the option to add a photo from camera or gallery. First, we'll add one from the camera. And then when you tap or drag your finger across the screen, you'll get this color picker tool, which will select the color that you've tapped on and blow it out into this box. So I'm just going to drag over the screen to show you that all areas of the screen are able to be selected. And then eventually I will settle on one color and will take us through to the next screen. So I like this kind of orangey color. I'm going to go to the color detail screen now. On the color detail screen, you can see that the name is automatically filled out. That's done with a call to an API. You also have these 2 sliders, which allow you to adjust certain properties of the colors. If you like the color maybe, but you want to find a similar one, which is more close to what you liked. At the bottom, we also have complementary color, which is the opposite of the color that you selected. And in the bottom right corner, that is the dominant colors of the overall photo. So I'm just going to quickly add a photo from the gallery as well to show you that that's possible. And again, we'll go through the selection. Yeah, I like the color in this amethyst. Not quite there, but just let's get it right and go through to the other screen. And you can see that the screen shows as well when the photo is added from the gallery. Just a bit more playing around with the sliders to give you a feel for the app. And that's that. So I'll pass over to Constantine, who will explain our motivations.
Hi everyone from me. So we chose to make Latus, let's say first of all, because makers will learn how to become web developers, but that's not just it. We'll learn how to become developers in general. So for that reason, we decided that we might go from web to mobile development because it's really interesting. So we decided to go with Dart and Flutter, the tech stack we actually use, and Chris is going to talk about this later on. So we wanted to try a new process of essentially kind of developing something, because developing in mobile is different to comparing it to developing a web application. So we liked that challenge and we went for it. So the reason we chose that kind of idea essentially was because there is a shortage, let's say, of color pick applications currently on the App Store for all platforms. So it was really essential for graphic designers as well as web developers probably even for marketing professionals, to actually have access to a color, let's say palette on your phone. You can actually use wherever you are, whenever you want to, and come up with a description with a name and all the details about a color of interest that you have. Also, we know that in marketing, some things like the colors, they trigger specific psychological, let's say, responses to the client. So that it might be interesting to actually use those colors for that reason. Also, last but not least, we essentially picked the right color using a slider to get similar colors. And we wanted to be able to examine how essentially the user is affected, the viewer is affected by a certain image. And for that reason, we provided you with a palette of dominant colors. So you have all the dominant colors at the bottom right of the application, so you can actually see what's really contained within the image itself. And now I'm going to pass it on to Chris, who's going to talk about Flutter and what we use that technology.
Thank you, Constantine. So yeah, we decided to choose Flutter for several reasons, really. So during our planning process, we narrowed down the choices of projects that we liked and had a look at what stacks would be good options for those. So we came across Flutter, which is an open source UI software development kit from Google. It's pretty new, but the nice thing about it is that it allows you to write in cross-platform apps with a single code base. So it's yeah, quite a bit easier to work with. One of the other key features of it is the hot reload function, which even on a small app like this probably saved us a good couple of hours just in the couple of weeks that we had. But ultimately, we decided to choose it really to kind of push ourselves and see what we could achieve in a couple of weeks, trying to get to grips with something entirely new to us. So yeah, I'm going to pass it on to Malachi to talk about the kind of learning process.
So I'll talk about the challenges we faced and how we overcame them. The first one and the most expected was learning the new technologies. None of us had ever made a mobile app. None of us had experience with Flutter or Dart, but yet we had to make an app in these brand new technologies in just 10 days. I mean, we really threw ourselves in at the deep end. So our strategy to scale this mountainous learning curve was simple, really. Perspiration. Every evening after we finished working on our app, we'd go away and we'd carry out our own individual learning, working through online tutorials, online courses, and Flutter's official documentation. And after the first week, that continuous integration of knowledge really started to translate itself into more lines of code in our application, in conjunction with a major breakthrough that we had, which brings me on to our second and biggest challenge. So our main feature to isolate a pixel in the image and retrieve its color, we didn't expect this to be easy, but we didn't anticipate how difficult this would turn out to be. We played around with two different ways of doing this, and ultimately we were able to get one of them to work. Thankfully, the one that we were able to integrate involved 30 lines of code. The alternative, which we spent the majority of time trying to integrate, involved 150 lines of code. So we really achieved a major victory with this. And after that, we were really able to push on and implement our other features in a much shorter space of time. But one thing we learned from this challenge is that even if there's a feature that seems simple in theory, never underestimate the difficulty and the complexity involved. We really gained a new appreciation for what developers do. And while there can be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I would say in the end, it definitely feels rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladis, for sharing your app with us today and your reflections. Your app is such a unique idea and lots of exciting use cases. I'm really excited to just walk around my house and see what colors there are and what matching colors I should put in different rooms. It's been also super inspiring to watch you work together. I was catching up with you, hearing about the obstacles you were facing, but you really worked together to overcome them. And it was super cool to see how much you were learning along the way and just unblocking yourselves. Really awesome work learning Flutter, really awesome work delivering this product. Thank you. Now let's welcome the final team of the night, Massive Attack.
A huge congratulations to all the other teams, really impressive. We are team Massive Attack, and today we'd like to introduce you to our love child of the last 2 weeks, Trifid. So the problem, each of us all have a lot of houseplants, and whilst they do bring us a lot of joy, we've all been through the traumatic experience of actually killing some of them, whether that be through overwatering or just forgetting about them and letting them die.
So we decided to make a mobile app that would let us keep track of our houseplants. Like some of the other groups, we'd never made a mobile app before, so we decided to learn this new framework called React Native so that we could build an app for both Apple phones and Android phones. Basically, it lets you sign up, create an account, log in, add your plants, and set things like watering notifications to remind you when to water your plant and when not to water it. And there's also a discover feature that connects to this external database, which has loads of information about loads of plants, so you can find out stuff about plants in general. So we're going to do a little walkthrough of how the app actually works. This is what it looks like on an iPhone. So you can sign up, but we've already got an account ready. And as you can see, it's super secure so that you can keep all your plant data well protected, which is obviously very important. When we finally get our login details correct, you can log in and it will take you through to your homepage of your plants.
So in here, you are able to have one plant, one of your plants. You can choose one of the photos that you would have on your photo library on your mobile phone. It is an example, and you can nickname your plant in order to, to make a more closer relationship with it. You can then choose the kind of plant that your plant is. We have a list of several plants. If you don't find it, you can choose another one. And you can state the water frequency in days. Then you tell the app when was the last time you're watering the plant, and you will receive a notification when it's due to be watered again. On the notes section, you can add whatever you like. So, for example, if your plant prefers to is better on places more warm or whatever, just note that will make easier to deal with the plant.
So we've added George to our terrarium, so now we can scroll and have a look at our other plants, and let's check out how Stina is doing. Oh no, she's thirsty. So we've said that she needs to be watered every 7 days, and she was last watered on the 21st. So once we've watered her, we can press the little watering icon and the date will update, and thank goodness her thirst has been quenched. And then we'll get another notification in another 7 days. All right, so now let's check out the Discover feature.
So our Discover page is linked to an external API database called Trifid, which has information of over 1 million plants. Obviously not all of them houseplants, but you can refine your search using the search bar at the top. So here we're going to check out a fern, get some more information about it, and click through. Each of the cards has the binomial Latin name as well as the common name, and a little photograph as well. And here you can browse the plant, purchase the plant, and do anything that Google allows you to. And back to the terrarium. And what's this? A pesky Trifid. I think we better delete this one. So we click through to the update page where we can either update the plant or delete it, as in this case. And you can eventually log out.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the highs of the project. So we decided to learn a completely new tech stack. We were using the coding language JavaScript, which we've done briefly in the Makers course, but we were using a completely new frameworks, and yeah, so we had a lot to learn in the 2 weeks that we had available. And we also, this was our first mobile app that we ever made, and so yeah, so we were pretty pretty pleased and excited to be learning something new and quite proud that we managed to create this in just under 2 weeks. Another high was definitely learning about plants. Who knew that acorns grow on oak trees? We all know that now. We also, we've generally had a lot of fun working on this. We've been working through the weekend, and we've had regular visits from our four-legged friends, the dogs, cat and mice, that have come to made regular appearances to cheer us on. Because it's been a bit weird that we've just been doing this over Zoom. None of us have actually met each other. But yeah, generally we've had a really good time, and we'd love to continue adding features onto this as well after the film.
Yes, and through this process, we faced some challenges, as the other teams already referred as well. So one of our biggest challenges was we actually had a lot of ideas and time constraints. So we didn't really know how to structure it. And it took some time on planning and deciding what was more important. At the beginning, it was a little bit overwhelming as well. It was a full new stack, lots of things to learn, but it was, we think that we overcome the challenges we face and we grow on them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm definitely guilty of both over and underwatering loads of houseplants and sending them to an early graveyard, but I clearly really need to start using Trifid to remind me of when I should actually be watering them. I really love the feature also that just from within the same app, you can find out more information about any plant and do whatever you want. Thanks for sharing this app with us, Massive Attack. A huge congratulations to the entire October 2020 cohort. It's been a genuine pleasure working with all of you over the past few months, and you should all be really proud of how far you've come. And I'm really excited to stay in touch and hear about your next adventures. A big virtual round of applause to all of you. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to friends and family for tuning in tonight. I hope you all have a great weekend. Now I'm going to hand over to Haley, and we're going to have a 30-minute Q&A to answer the questions that have been submitted.
Hello, thanks Tatiana. Those are some really cool projects. It's a really nice kind of start to the first demo day of this year. Cool, so thanks to everyone who's joined us. There's a lot of you online, so it's kind of really good to see so many people at our first event of the year. So yeah, my name's Haley. I run events here at Makers. So we're going to be answering a couple of your questions that have come through today. Before we get started, I just want to share a few bits of information with you about a couple of different things that we've got coming up. So we run a load of free events here at Makers. The next one in our diary is February 8th, and that's where we'll be sharing information about our part-time course that is starting in April. So if you want to do the same Makers Bootcamp with a slightly different schedule over a longer period of time, please come along to that and you can find out all the information. We also do a coding workshops called Code Accelerator. It's a really great chance to kind of like try Makers before you buy, basically. And they're run by our lovely coaching team, and the next one of those is February 10th. I think we had a question earlier as well about apprenticeships come through in the chat. We've got a few opportunities in Blackpool, London and Oxford coming up at the moment. So I'm going to drop some links across to you all in the chat in just a moment. So if you want to look at any of those things, yeah, please dive in and find some information. Cool, so let's dive into your questions because we've had a lot coming through. So we're going to be trying to get through as many of them as possible. If you see one that you like as well, please just upvote it so we can see the priorities. So the first question from Ryan is asking how we no longer offer the job offer guarantee. And essentially what makes the Makers course worth 8K compared to some other competitors, such as Futureproof, which is a free bootcamp. So I'll kind of share my 2 cents, but it'd also be good to hear your guys' opinions. So I know that like different boot camps offer different things, and it's kind of what's best for you. I know that at Makers, for example, all of our coaches have been professional developers, companies including like Facebook, Deloitte. You know, they've got really, really amazing experience, you know, from the industry. We were also the first bootcamp in Europe. So in terms of reputation, employers know kind of who we are. And also a lot of our alumni who went through our course, you know, 8 years ago, they're now in hiring positions, a lot of them, and they come back and share a lot of positions at their companies with our community kind of internally first. So it's this really amazing repository of like some of the best jobs that don't even kind of get out onto the job market. So that's the kind of like lifelong thing that you're always involved with. Rachel, is there anything else that you would add kind of to that?
I think so. I think you sort of covered most of the points. Yeah, we really do have a good sort of career support at the end of the course as well. Like that's a big focus for us. I'm not sure if that is the same focus for other boot camps, but yeah, once you finish the course, you're still able to gain support from technical coaches and get career support from careers coaches, so CV reviews, helping you prep for tech interviews, and yeah, like Hayley said, like an alumni of lots of people to sort of dive into sort of their connections as well. So yeah, I think that's another point.
Yeah, and just a few more things that thought might be interesting. Like we can't comment necessarily on any other boot camps because we haven't done them ourselves. But I think what makes Makers really special is the kind of atmosphere that we have here. It is a really intense learning experience, but the whole community is really there to support you. We also have an emotional intelligence curriculum, which helps support you in not just the technical skills. It also means that you are ready to join as a software engineer, because now software engineers are, you know, parts of teams. They're not necessarily people working alone in rooms, only interacting with other humans every so often. We're, you know, parts of teams now. And so kind of having that focus around communication and teamwork also makes sure that you have all the skills to be ready to be a software engineer.
Oh, thank you both. One thing to just add actually, I think, is a lot of the time with boot camps, the actual on-site kind of like boot camp section can be very similar. But as Rachel mentioned, the kind of career support and how the job hunting section works afterwards is often quite different. So I know with some boot camps, you'll go into like a placement, whereas, you know, other ones you'll be asked to kind of come back and coach. So that section can be what might really decide it for you, depending on you know, what your aspirations are straight afterwards. So definitely look at that section as well. Cool. So the next question from JP is, are the candidates hired now? Sorry, are they employed now? And how long after completion are people employed? So no, this cohort, today was their final day on the actual bootcamp. So they'll all be starting their job hunting at the moment. In terms of employment rates, generally speaking, it's kind of between 3 and 6 months when the time period to find a job. During kind of like the height of coronavirus kicking in and stuff, obviously that was like extended by quite a lot. But I think like kind of from what we're seeing now, it seems to have kind of getting back towards that normal rate. Do you think that's fair to say, generally speaking?
I think so. I think as with everything sort of like COVID related, it's sort of a bit up in the air. So yeah, I think it is a tough position still perhaps for job hunters to be, but that's why I guess we've got the support there for the job hunters. And yeah, last year things definitely started to sort of pick up for like makers, graduates sort of getting hired, companies getting used to onboarding people remotely, which I think was something a bit hard for them to get their heads around at the start. But yeah, I think over the months they sort of got used to it and they were able to support sort of onboarding juniors remotely as well, which makes a difference. So yeah, hopefully we just see things getting better going forward.
Cool, thanks Rachel. The next question is pretty similar, but asks what the kind of employment rate is. So again, like not factoring in when it was coronavirus times, I think of people who were actively like looking for jobs, it was 89% within that 6-month time frame. That doesn't mean that they didn't then find a job after that, but that's kind of what we measure for. So hopefully that's helpful. Do we have links with employers outside of London? As I mentioned, with our apprenticeships, they tend to be spread a little bit more far and wide. So there's opportunities in Oxford and Blackpool at the moment, as well as London. Other than that, generally speaking, they're mainly kind of southeast based. I think there's a few in Bristol, but most of our contacts are here. Okay, the next question is asking, do you start the course with learning Ruby, and how does this enable learning other programming languages? Tatiana, would you be able to help?
Yep. Yep. So you do start the course with learning Ruby. Ruby, I think, is a really great programming language to start the course with. It's quite readable. It has great error messages, which can point you to exactly what's going wrong, which I think is a big focus in the first couple of weeks, is learning to read error messages and let them guide you into what you should be doing, particularly with test-driven development, where you write the tests before you even write the code. And kind of in the middle of the course, we do have a module where you are introduced to learning a new programming language, a second programming language, and this is JavaScript. So you bring all of the things that you learned in Ruby over to JavaScript, but really the idea is that you learn how you best learn a programming language, and the coaches are here to support you, and therefore you're empowered to learn any other programming language you want to or need to for any future employment. Also in the first couple of weeks, the focus is not just Ruby as a programming language, it's actually a lot of object-oriented principles and kind of the structure, which will carry over to whatever programming language you choose. So it's not just about Ruby.
Cool, thank you, Tatiana. Lovely, so the next question is asking, is there any financial help available for course fees? And it would be useful to hear people's own stories of how they enrolled. What I would suggest to hear people's kind of personal stories is one of our future Q&A events, because that's where we tend to speak to Makers alumni. But Rachel, would you be able to help with the financial help side of the question?
Yes, I can help. And I'm sure you'll probably be able to see some stories on the blog about perhaps how people sort of found Makers and maybe how they joined, so that I would have a look there as well. But yeah, there are a couple of options for sort of payment wise. So the course costs £8,000 in total, if people aren't aware. There is a discount for women of 500, but yeah, so I guess the options are, if you're looking for sort of help, is loan options. So there's a company called CourseBud that are like a compare the market for loans. So you can go onto their website and type in a few bits of information, and somebody will get back to you as to whether they will be able to point you in the direction of a loan company. So that's CourseBud. And then the second one you could have a look at is Lendwise. They have provided loans for students in the past to do something like Makers or a bootcamp. So yeah, Lendwise and CourseBud would be the places to have a look for financial help.
Cool, thank you, Rachel. The next question from Cynthia is asking, how many projects are we expected to complete throughout the entire bootcamp? Tatiana, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, so during the course of the bootcamp, there are 3 different team-based projects. The first one is 1 week, and the second 2 are 2 weeks long each. But on the weeks that you aren't doing teamwork projects, you are actually pairing in the afternoons on a different project each week that is focused on those week's goals. As well as on the weekends, there's an end of unit challenge, and that is a project that will help you consolidate all of the goals from that week. And so actually by the end of the bootcamp, you'll have worked on a dozen or so projects, even maybe more, that you can show off different skills and practice different things.
Lovely, thank you so much. So, oh, sorry, I've not dismissed the right questions. Okay, so the next question is asking, can we give examples of how we help students to obtain their future roles? Yeah, so obviously it's a really big part of the bootcamp. So there's kind of, well, I guess 3 parts to it. So we have our careers coaches, and what their team do is help with the kind of skills that you need around job hunting. So kind of how to prepare a tech CV, maybe what to look for in a technical interview, because for a lot of people it'll be completely different from the industry that you've come from. So they'll kind of really train you up on the skills side of things, and they run workshops in the same way that you have the technical workshops. So that's one team. We also have our partnerships team, and they're responsible for actually kind of going out there in the industry, speaking to people about makers and what we do, and the skills that our students have, and asking them to come in and advertise their jobs to our students. So companies will come in and do lunchtime talks to tell you about you know, the culture there and all that kind of thing, and they'll register as our hiring partners, who are kind of like main hub of companies that we've kind of like fact checked them to make sure that they're great places to work. But obviously you're allowed to look for employment, you know, wherever you find a job. And I guess the third part of it would be our alumni community, as we mentioned before. I can't stress enough, I think, how much people rely on the alumni community as a resource. It's also great to find mentors, and like in terms of second and third roles in tech, like people always kind of come back to that group to find those. So hopefully that answers your question. So the next question is asking about apprenticeships. Are there any age limits? And Rachel, do you have any more just like general details that might be helpful for people?
I don't believe there are any age limits. I know some apprenticeships do, but I don't think ours do. Yeah, I don't think there is. Definitely having a look on the website, there is an apprenticeship section. I guess in general, to make you aware, the apprenticeships aren't open for like general applications, but there are a couple of companies recruiting right now for apprenticeships, which is why we have some opportunities in Blackpool and Oxford, like Hayley said. So I know that on the website you can register interest for other opportunities that might become available later in the year, but these are just a couple of specific companies that have sort of public sort of invites for people to apply to at the moment.
Cool, thank you, Rachel. So the next question is asking how many people from July, August and September cohorts last year have now gotten jobs and the percentage employed. I don't have that number off the top of my head, I'm afraid, but I'm just writing down your email address because I can see it's handily also your display name. So any information that I can find, I'll try to send across to you. I know that there are people from those cohorts that have been employed, but I honestly couldn't tell you how many, I'm afraid. Okay. So next question from Ryan is asking, what's the average salary Makers Academy alumni get on their first employment? So generally it's £32,000. I guess different factors that can affect it is what kind of previous experience you've had, not necessarily in a technical role, because most people are career changers, but you know, if you've been a manager for 10 years in a different industry, you'll likely get a higher salary, like in the same way as with any job. But yeah, the starting salaries tend to be also kind of London, that's based on like London jobs as well. So if it's in different areas, it might be slightly different from that. Okay, I'm just going to skip through these ones. Okay, so Matt is asking, how do teams select their projects? Are they their own ideas or are they given projects?
Yeah, so the kind of 2 weeks ago, so on the Friday before they start the final projects, we have an ideation session with the whole cohort. Everyone brings a few ideas, shares with everyone in the cohort, And then we pull out a few categories, and we use these categories to generate teams. And then once the devs are within their teams on Monday of the first week, they come up with their own ideas. They kind of solidify what their minimum viable product's going to be and their tech stack. So they aren't assigned projects for the final project. For the first and second projects during the course, these are more guided. So we do give them some user stories and requirements, as well as a tech stack and framework to use. And so they kind of build up throughout the course to the final project, the devs being entirely in charge of what their product is.
Well, thank you, Tatiana. And if would you mind taking the next one as well? Does the bootcamp cover cloud?
Cool. I'm not quite sure which part of cloud you mean, but there are parts. So for example, the devs do work with deploying to the cloud, so using Heroku to deploy to the cloud, or other providers. So that is part of it. There aren't specific modules about that, about the cloud, but they do interact with the cloud.
Cool, thank you. I'm going to stay with you, Tatiana. There's a couple of technical ones. So how fast is the lesson or class pace, and how much out of class learning is there?
Cool. So this is definitely quite an intensive bootcamp, quite fast-paced. You're not expected to cover and understand 100% of everything that we kind of set out in the weekly goals. This is by intention, because we think that with some more context, sometimes things just fit into place and click into place. In terms of the kind of class experience or not class experience, so the way a general week works is that you'll have a couple of workshops with the coach where we will demonstrate some skills. There'll be an exercise to do in groups within the cohort, and then we'll come back for a plenary and kind of discuss the learnings from the week. Besides that, there are additional practicals or exercises that you can work on either individually or groups, but the course is very largely self-directed, which means that you decide when you feel like you have covered a goal or you've done enough of an exercise to move on. Of course, the coaches are always here to support you in deciding whether you need to work further on with something or you feel like you've gotten it, but it is largely self-directed. And as I mentioned earlier, in the afternoons of those weeks where you're not in teamwork, you'll be pairing with another student from the cohort on a challenge.
Cool, thank you, Tatiana. Lovely. So we've got 25 open questions, by the way, so I'm going to try to give you concise answers for the next couple, just so we can help as many of you as possible. So Rachel, are there current plans to allow students back to classes once lockdown is over?
I think, yes, the eventual plan is that we would have, in-person classes again in the future. Obviously, we were planning before Christmas to hopefully be back as soon as we can, but obviously in January we went back into lockdown, and that sort of put things on hold for the moment. So any cohort which starts remotely over the next few months will remain remote throughout the whole sort of 4 months. So I think that's something to bear in mind. And yeah, just keep an eye on our newsletter and our website, and we will keep you updated about if we can offer in person, but it will be sort of when it's safe to do so, and when the government sort of advises that we can.
Cool, thank you. So to answer the next couple, if somebody gets in the cohort gets COVID and is off 1 to 2 weeks, how would we handle that? Obviously, everything is case by case. You wouldn't by any means be kind of like chucked out of Makers. It's likely that the coaches and our holistic coach would speak to you, and you'd probably be offered a place a kind of few cohorts down the line, as long as you'd be able to pick the work back up. But yeah, we definitely kind of speak to you and try to help you as best as we can. Do we know if you can apply for universal credit during the course? I'm not at all sure about that, I'm afraid. Rachel, are you aware?
I think it is like a case-by-case basis. So we have been asked before, so we would just direct you to go onto the government website, just because there will be eligibility criteria in different circumstances which will affect that. So yeah, definitely contact there.
Cool, thank you. Next question is, are the apprenticeships you linked open to those without coding experience? Yes, definitely. The full details are on both of them. But I think with apprenticeships in particular, they're very keen to help people who are starting from a very beginner level. So definitely get practicing. But yeah, you're not expected to be, you know, anything kind of like beyond a beginner level. So Tatiana, next one for you would be, how do you handle conflict in teams if people are really not getting along?
Yeah, so we really strive to encourage people to foster really open communication and just sharing, kind of respectfully sharing what their needs are, kind of what they're struggling with, how they're feeling. And, you know, everyone on the course has a common goal of learning and supporting each other, and the cohorts become really, really supportive environments. So I do think that just by sharing how people are feeling, you know, the team is really there to kind of work together and come back together to just focus on the project and get through any challenges they have.
That's great, thank you. The next question from Matt, if you go to the links that I've put in the chat, they've got the full kind of information because each one is slightly different. In terms of how competitive, we do get a lot of inquiries in. Obviously they are all considered, but looking at the details and registering your interest is the best way to kind of keep updated about you know, what we'd look for in an application and what companies are looking for. That one's for the cohort. So the next question, were these all 2-week projects? So yeah, as Tatiana mentioned, they're all in the last 2 weeks of the course. Okay. Are learners treated the same as university students? Can they get a council tax discount or student loan? Is this anything that you've been asked before, Rachel, in terms of admissions?
So the student loan one, because we're like not a university, you're not able to sort of get a government student loan to do the course. It would be through one of those providers, Coursebud or Lendwise, that are like independent loan providers. I'm not sure about the tax stuff. I think you'd again have to, it would be based yeah, on your sort of circumstances. So I'm not sure about that one.
Cool, thank you. On a lighter note, do we need space for the yoga classes? Just to mention that if you are kind of new to Makers, we do offer yoga classes, free yoga classes for the students twice a week, which is you know, kind of part of the sort of holistic offering. So there is some information on our website about that if you're interested. Okay, next question from Luke is, what are the most common reasons why people drop out of the bootcamp? Tatiana, is this something that you kind of speak to students about?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to personal circumstance, whether that's maybe they had something else, family commitment that they had to take care of, or another personal commitment. Those are generally the reasons why people do drop out of the bootcamp.
Yeah, definitely. And again, as we said before, everything is a conversation, so we'll try our best to kind of support you. So the next question is asking, they're gearing themselves up to apply, working through 7th Caillou Carters, which is on Code Wars, which is one of the platforms that we recommend before you join. Are there any other things that we'd recommend that would set their application up well? Rachel, can you help with that one, please?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you can look at level 8s and 7s. You don't really need to be trying like anything harder, like the level 6Q challenges. I think coming along to one of the Code Accelerator workshops before you have an interview is really helpful. You practice pair programming, you get to meet one of the technical coaches to get help with how they break down a Code Wars kata. So I would suggest coming along to one of those. They do sell out, so do sign up if you do want to come along to one of those. There are some books. There's a book called Learn Ruby the Hard Way, and Learn to Program is another book I think the coaches recommend. So there are a couple of books that you can have a look at. You could perhaps also look at something called Luminosity, which is like a brain training app. So it's not coding, but it gets you to like think outside the box, which I think is a skill that you use on the course quite a lot.
That's great, thank you. So the next question is asking, they're looking to go down more of a commercial route. How many of our alumni go down this route? And is the course suitable for this? Generally speaking, I'd say as a bootcamp, we are most kind of geared up to support you in finding a software development role. I think that's probably where you'd get the most value out of what we do, because that's, you know, where our coaches and coaches' expertise are, and most of our contacts like in the industry. Our alumni have gone on to do all sorts of different technical job roles, so you'd probably be able to find somebody who has gone down that route, but generally speaking, yeah, if you're looking to become a developer, maybe before you're doing that, like that's kind of where our sort of skills are placed. Okay, the next question from Rachel is saying they're not based in the UK. In terms of employment opportunities, do we offer career support for people in Europe? I'm also wondering if outside the COVID times, the bootcamp can be completed remotely. Cool. So you would still definitely get the careers coaching support in terms of like the skills that you need and those workshops. As I said, we don't have many contacts outside of the UK, so that might be one where the alumni community might be able to come into play. And the next part of the question was, outside of COVID, will we be offering the bootcamp remotely? I don't actually know if we've got a final decision on this, but I think it's definitely something that we've realized throughout this process, like there is definitely an appetite for people to do it. So there's definitely no dates for it, but I know it's a conversation that's been had. Is there anything different at all to that you've heard, Rachel, obviously from seeing the future cohorts?
Yeah, nothing different. Yeah, I think like Hayley said, that hopefully we can have some in person, but yeah, we do know that there are people in other places in the UK and outside of the UK that are interested in the course. So I think there will be an option, but it perhaps won't be as regular, depending on sort of the demand.
Cool, thank you. Can we type, oh, sorry, so can we type in the books that we recommended? Yeah, I'm sure Rachel can drop them in the chat. Okay, so the next question is asking, on average, how many employers have been introduced to each maker after graduation within the past 6 months? I'm not sure on a kind of like set number for that. The way it kind of works is it's not like a one-to-one introduction. So as I mentioned before, companies will come in and they will kind of do a talk about you know, who they are and what they do, and any student is welcome to attend those talks if they think, you know, they might want to work there. And also when job opportunities do come up, we upload them into a system called Hub. And so again, like students are able to sort of see the different options available and kind of take a pick. So it's not as if like one person is personally introduced to another one. So I know that's not kind of like the direct answer to your question, but hopefully that gives you a better idea of kind of like how our job hunting works. However, if you do have any other questions, you can always call us as well if you want to get some more details about that side of things. Okay, the next one I'm thinking is going to be for you, Tatiana. So they've seen the curriculum for weeks 12 to 16. Does this hold a relatively strict content of general topics of learning? Or does the course allow flexibility with individual interests that you discover throughout the course?
So the course, you know, we do follow a set curriculum of kind of broad topics that you're working on. So for example, in week 3 of the full-time course, it's kind of the intro to the web. You build your first web app with Ruby Sinatra framework in week 4. You learn about databases and kind of linking databases into the web apps that you are working on in week 3. And so the course like really builds up week by week on all of the previous topics. But as you mentioned, the last 2 weeks, students really have the initiative to, go out and do whatever project they want in whatever tech stack, whether that's mobile or web app or whatever else.
That's great, thanks Tatiana. Sorry, just trying to find where we are. So a bit future oriented, would you know what sorts of jobs graduates end up going into, and what kind of languages or job requirements? Yeah, I mean, I would say it's very broad. As we mentioned before, even though you kind of start out in Ruby and JavaScript on the course, people definitely go into jobs that have a full different range of languages. And a lot of the time students will spend their time directly after the course upskilling in different areas. So we see a full range of things, back-end engineers, front-end engineers, some people go into iOS development. There is really quite a broad scope. The next question is asking, how many apprenticeships are available in London within the next 3 months, please? That's not something that I don't think we have a set number. I know we currently have the one opportunity with Elsevier, if I'm right. Is there anything else on that, Rachel, that people should be aware of at all?
That's sort of the only open one to the public at the moment, because we do have a pool of applicants already waiting for sort of other opportunities that might become available. So if you want to become part of our pool of applicants for later apprenticeships, you need to register your interest on the website. But at the moment, it's just the Elsevier one for the next few months in London. So you need to be applying now for that because, yeah, the applications, I guess, will close pretty soon.
Cool, thanks, Rachel. The next one's probably aimed your way as well. Is it best to start the course when you are ready to make the transition to coding, currently started a new job and want to give it a chance?
Yeah, definitely. You know, if you've just started a new job and you want to give the new job a chance, I think that's what you're referring to, then yes, I would say sort of you could maybe code in your spare time and see if coding is something that you want to pursue maybe in the future. But yeah, just sort of applying, you know, a month or two before you hope to join us. That's sort of what we look for. But you can come along to events before that if you are starting to code and you want some help.
Cool, thank you, Rachel. So the next question, in regards to the apprenticeship, do you go through the 12-week bootcamp with makers first and then the workplace? Yes, you do. So yeah, it's very different to other apprenticeships in that it's structured just like our bootcamp. So 12 weeks with us, and then you move straight from that the following week to the employer. And they're all of the opportunities that we have at the moment are remote training as well. Okay, so next question from Cynthia is asking, I see a lot of your graduates write blogs on Medium. Is this something that you recommend? Yes, it is. Blogging is really big for developers. It's also really useful to kind of, when you're job hunting, to kind of show a bit of a point of difference or give you a chance to explain a bit more about something that you're passionate about. It's great to kind of like add that to your portfolio. Okay, David is asking, do we cover any SQL on the course at all?
Yep, so in the database week, you'll be using Postgres, which uses SQL for its queries.
Oh, thank you, short and sweet. The next one is asking, so a couple of questions. How will remote working affect the course? What will be lost from the course having to remote work? From your website, it looks like the office environment was really supportive and beneficial. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it seems as if they would be like completely different, but I think a lot of work has gone into making sure the experience is pretty consistent in terms of, you know, how the coaching is delivered, you know, what we deliver in terms of the well-being support, the job hunting support, everything. That's all very much the same. I suppose, you know, when you're in person, there's those kind of like corridor chats that you can't really emulate on Zoom. But yeah, I would say a lot of effort has been put into kind of give you the same kind of quality of experience. From a coaching perspective, Tatiana, would you say, you know, there's anything that you think is kind of different about delivering the course remotely?
In some way, I think there are loads of benefits to being remote. So for example, a huge part of the course is just sharing code with each other and getting feedback with each other. That's a lot easier to do on Zoom because you can just share your screen rather than, like, say, having to hook up to a projector or like look at someone else's screen. But of course, you know, meeting people online is different than meeting people in person, kind of beyond our control, but we've really tried to make the experience very similar. And I do feel that the kind of community environment and all of that is still there with remote cohorts.
Cool, thanks so much. So the next sections of the question were, is the course sector specific or does it equip you for all industries? No, people go into all sorts of different industries, and there's quite a lot of choice going on. And is it more defined towards back-end or front-end developer roles? We get quite a spread of both. Would you say the curriculum's balanced, Tatiana?
Yeah, I think the curriculum's definitely balanced. We do JavaScript in the front end and Ruby in the back end. And then in your project, you can also choose to do whatever language you want to focus on.
Cool, thank you. So what are the expected salaries for graduates on the course? So generally speaking, 32k is the starting salary for Makers graduates. And again, those are mainly London-based roles. Congrats to the cohort. We will pass on your message, thank you. And I think Rachel's just dropped the books in the chat for you. Okay, so we're on the last two for today. If anyone's got any other questions, I'm going to send a follow-up email. So if anything kind of comes to mind, just drop me a message back to that and I'll try to get back to you. So from Neil, they're asking, I'm looking to change career and want to give myself the best chance to switch smoothly. Would spending 6 months learning coding myself be beneficial before beginning the bootcamp? Rachel, please.
Yeah, I think, you know, any learning that you can do before the bootcamp is going to be beneficial. Some people spend 2 or 3 weeks, some people spend a couple of months, so it really does vary. If you do have more time and you want to spend 6 months, I would say, yeah, that's amazing. That would be great. But yeah, if you do only have 3 or 4 weeks, you can definitely pick up like the basics of Ruby and sort of still join us. We don't expect you to be an expert before starting the course.
Cool, thank you. So the last couple, yes, I'll send you the Code Accelerator link in the chat right now. Let me just do that.
Haley, I can do it.
Sorry, I got it. Thank you though. So there we go. And the next question is asking about the part-time course. How successful has it been? Are employers showing a preference towards full-time over part-time alumni? It's in its final weeks at the moment. So our next demo day, if I'm right, Rachel, will also be including our part-time students as well.
Yes, so they haven't quite graduated. They're still doing, yeah, the final few weeks. So I guess we won't really have data on that until, you know, a few weeks after they finish, but also it might take, you know, a couple of months, like we've said, to sort of see what people are saying.
Yeah. So yeah, please do come to their demo day, so you'll be able to see the kind of compare the projects. And as I said, we do also have that the part-time course Q&A, and that's where you'll find out a bit more in-depth view of kind of how that side of things works. So yeah, please come along. The questions are still coming in thick and fast. I'm just going to whiz through these and then we're going to end for today. So where are the apprenticeship locations? London, Oxford and Blackpool currently. Should I book a phone call to check the set times for classes? No, if you go onto our FAQs, that's the best place to kind of see the structure of the week and the curriculum, but it won't have like the like literal like time because that kind of changes kind of cohort to cohort. And do we see Llewellyn as a direct competitor, and what sets makers apart? Yeah, Llewellyn are a really, really great bootcamp. I would say makers, as I said before, we're kind of we're really, really well established in the UK market. Great alumni, wonderful coaches like Tatiana, and yeah, I think like we do really, really put a lot of effort into helping you get a job as well. So, but yeah, definitely look around at a couple of boot camps because it is where is the best place to learn for you. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you guys for helping me answer these questions. It's really nice to see so many people kind of so keen to kind of get started in coding in 2021. Please look out for our email, which will include all of the details that we've just shared. And the recording of this will be going onto YouTube if you want to watch back and find anything out. And yes, the link to the books is just in the chat if you are still looking for it. Lovely. All right. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you at our next event. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.